So I have both of these on their XY mics. This isn't going to be a scientific test by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just going to give you an idea as I go back and forth between them, how the two XY mics are kind of comparing to each other. Excuse a few plosives here and there. That's going to happen with unprotected mics. I didn't want to put any protection over them just in case somebody complains that one protection is better than the other. Anyways, this is what you get. Okay, so this has been one of the more requested videos on this channel. Zoom H5Studio versus the Tascam Portacapture X6. So then let's take a look at both of these and see which one might be your next recorder. So let's start with the most important stat, the price. Both of these units are $349, which I do find fascinating just due to the difference in the age of these units. The Portacapture is a little over 3 years old, being announced in late 2022 and becoming available later in 2023. And let me be clear, this thing was ahead of its time, which is oddly something that Tascam is kind of known for. As for the build of these things, it does tend to be close, but I will have to give Tascam the point here. The plastic isn't that far off in quality, or at least it feels that way, but the Tascam feels less hollow, which sounds weird, but it goes a long way to the perception of the quality. However, all that goes away when you look at the build in XY mics. Those puny ones on the X6 are absolutely no match for the beefy mics on the H5Studio. Even the rotatable ones on the X6 pale in comparison, as Zoom has the interchangeable concept. Now, the rest of the I/O is exactly the same between the units. However, when we get to the screen, I'm not going to be talking about menus, just the screens, by the way. Tascam blows Zoom out of the water here. It's bigger, it has better resolution, and touch. I'm not normally a touch fan on smaller units, but this screen is just big enough for it to be fantastic. And with the menu systems that these units have, touch just makes things so much easier, which we will be talking about in just a bit. Oh, and I should mention that both these companies decided to go with Bluetooth on the units, but only if you buy the extra dongle. I still can't believe we're doing that in 2026, but here we are. Now, I do have the Bluetooth for the Tascam, not for the Zoom, so I'm just going to leave that out for both. Now, there's not really much to talk about, as both of these units have very competitive specs. The one truly different thing would be the EIN, or the self-noise of the unit. The H5Studio has a better EIN at neg 127 dBUA weighted. The X6 comes in at neg 125 dBUA weighted. Can you tell the difference when I'm going between them? 2 dB isn't much, but it should be audible if you're really paying attention. Now, I can compare that, but I can't guarantee the outcome, as they're both 32-bit floats, so it is a bit silly. But here you go. Both with the trim at 0 and gained up in post. Other than that, these units are really going to be well matched, and that EIN shouldn't be the biggest swing in decision, because there's so much more to make your decision on with these two units. All right, so handling noise on the Tascam X6. One of the problems with the plastic bodies like this and the hollowness is that handling noise. So if you are going handheld with these things, it can be a bit of a pain, especially when you're on the run doing field work or doing any kind of interview work with this. You got to keep your hand very still. This is what the Tascam Portacapture X6 sounds like handheld. Now we have the Zoom H5 handling noise. And again, the more hollow the body is, the worse the handling noise is going to be. And you can kind of hear that as I kind of move this around in my hands. Now, compared to the Tascam X6, I haven't really listened. You should let me know, but this is what it sounds like. Now, we're just looking at the menus and how you can navigate through them here. We're going to get into the actual stuff in the menus in a few. But here's where the touchscreen wins hands down. The ability to swing in and out of these menus just by touching back is a huge deal compared to the Zoom. There is one caveat here though, that touchscreen life does impact accessibility. So if you are visually impaired, there's no accessibility for the X6, or at least not to my knowledge. I do believe that might be able to be changed with the Bluetooth and with the app on the phone, although again, I'm not sure. But Tascam does have another trick up their sleeve, and I'm surprised that Zoom didn't do this. And that's modes. These things allow you to record in specific modes like podcast, music, field recording, or even an ASMR setting. And when we get into the next chapter, this is where Tascam's really going to take the lead. Now, Zoom snipped a lot of features off when they moved over to the studio branding, and I can kind of see why. They were diversifying their lineup, and there were a ton of features on the older H series that a lot of people really didn't use or even know about. So I think they just dropped a bunch to save on their development, and I really do get that. But a lot of these things are just really nice quality of life improvements, like a tuner. It's a small little detail that really adds a ton of value to your purchase. And one of the biggest would be Pocket Studio. Now, this was introduced in the 2.0 update for the firmware, but it basically brings all the versatility of the Pocket Studio lineup from Tascam to this little handheld unit. Firmware updates for fixes are great, like what Zoom does, but seeing a company actually add something as impactful as Pocket Studio is amazing. This thing lets you overdub, a feature a lot of users miss from the H series lineup, and punch and roll, a feature that lets you take multiple takes and keep the recording seamless for post-production. Now again, I do have to give a nod to Zoom for their attention to accessibility on the Studio series though. But apart from that, a lot of people are starting to think they stripped it down maybe a bit too far. So when we're adding all this up, the Tascam is kind of looking like the belle of the ball here. There's a couple pretty big caveats with that though. These XY capsules are just better on the Zoom, and not by a little, they are absolutely fantastic. Add to that the ability to swap out for other capsules or even just more XLR inputs. The Zoom H5Studio is pretty amazing. But for versatility in the actual art of recording, Tascam has built something special here. Just the Pocket Studio add-on makes this a brilliant buy. And if you're looking for an all-around recorder for some studio work and perhaps even some field work, this thing is fantastic. Not to mention that I've seen the X6 on sale recently, but I've yet to see any meaningful sale on the H5Studio ever. I could be wrong here. Feel free to let me know how wrong I am down below. But also, let me know which way your heart is swinging and which one you prefer down there as well. Cheers, guys, and thanks for watching.